The S&P 500 was looking a little weak, but then Apple came in to save the day. Good evening, my fellow Riz Elite members and all of our subscribers on YouTube. Welcome to this week's Elite webinar. Now, if you want to be up to date on all of the information that's going on in the stock market, then you need to do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you click the bell icon right next to it to get notified every time we upload a new webinar here on the channel, because you're not going to want to miss what's coming up next, because we've got an action-packed week ready for us in the market that we need to get prepared for. So let's take a look and see what happened this week and, kind of where we're at. Now, we were starting to see a bit of a bounce here on the S&P 500 going into this week. And we definitely came up here and got really close to that 50-day moving average. The 200 is down here in red. We kind of came up and tapped that on Monday, and then we had a very nice rejection. We came down really solidly here on Wednesday. You can see there was a lot of run up and then a complete sell off of the market going into the close. But then Thursday, we saw some peaking up. Of course, Wednesday we had the interest rate decision from the Fed, and Powell was talking, and so the market kind of rallied and then sold off going into the close. On Thursday, we had a bit of a rally, and then on Friday, we had Apple, and that was all it took. So we are sitting right on the 50-day moving average. We are still technically in a downtrend. As you can tell, we have not breached back above this trend line yet, and we're sitting right below the 50 moving average. So obviously, there's a little bit of concern going into this week, but we have a lot going on, of course, and we're going to take a look at all of it. And we'll come back to Apple a little bit later, because there's definitely some things to be talking about when it comes to Apple here, more than just the earnings. But let's keep going. Let's take a look here at the breakdown for the S&P 500. And as you can see, we're starting to see a bit of a recovery here in communications. I think that's pretty much all Apple. I'm just going to put it out there for you, as well as this nice little spike up here in tech. Really, that's kind of what's driving that. Energy taking a bit of a dip this week. I'll show you why here in just a second. But we're not seeing a nice recovery in, some of these market sectors, tech especially, and communications making a very nice push into the close on Friday. Financial still just kind of hanging out right here, just below the S&P 500 or the SPY ETF. Utilities starting to make a comeback. Riz talked about that at the beginning of the year, that utilities was something he was going to be keeping an eye on this year, and so far, looking pretty good. A lot better than last year, we'll put it that way. Consumer staples doing pretty well, definitely above the zero line, right alike here with healthcare and just consumer discretionary, but man, real estate is still just in the toilet, well below the zero line here at negative 8.4% on the year. S&P 500 overall doing very well so far, at up about 8.29% so far, but definitely communications and energy, the big winners, the outperformers in the S&P 500 right now. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that going into this weekend to earnings to see how that might change. Now, I alluded to energy, taking a bit of a dip this week, and this is exactly why. Oil has started to come down quite a bit, so we're definitely seeing a bit of a reversal here. We kind of came towards that 85 area, hung around there for a little bit, and then we really started selling off to the point where we're actually below my uptrend line here. So, of course, remember, these are just general lines. They're not, gospel or anything like that. But if we just kind of hang out in this area and come back up, I would venture to say that we can still say that we're in an uptrend at that point. But right now, seeing a nice little sell-off in oil, I can say that I'm seeing that reflected at the price of the pump where I'm at. Hopefully, you are too. Now, one thing that hasn't come down too much is gold, still on its absolute parabolic move, but definitely looking like it's on the right side of the parabola here, starting to come back down pretty sharply this week, closing right at $2,301 per ounce for gold. So, still way overvalued here with this huge push up that we've saw for the last about month or so. Let's see, when did this kind of get started? Probably right about here. Yeah, so right at the end of February, gold has just been going crazy. Actually, I guess it's 2 months. Math on stream is hard. But, we're starting to come down. We're kind of maybe coming back towards reality. We're going to be keeping an eye on this, but obviously, if you're in Elite, you know that we do not have any positions to speak of in gold. Let's take a look here at the breakdown for the bond yields and the U.S. dollar so we can get to the fun stuff. Of course, that's the earnings calendar. So, with that big run up in the market, with Powell's discussion of things looking better in the economy. We're starting to see I should rephrase that. Not things doing better in the economy, things doing better in terms of inflation. Because we got to remember to make inflation comes down, they kind of have to you know make things not as good for the rest of us. But we do see these bond yields starting to come down a little bit here. All of them moving, in unison at this point, coming down. Looks like we started that decline right at Tuesday, right before the announcement on Wednesday. And so, Powell's comments obviously were taken very positively by investors and things like that. So, of course, inflation is still rather sticky at this point. It doesn't seem to want to, start going down again. And that's something obviously that the Fed's going to have to keep an eye on. And they keep moving those interest rate cuts back further and further. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. And along with that, we are seeing a little bit of a decline here in the dollar. Nothing too serious. Obviously, after this nice run up since about December of last year, we've been on a very nice uptrend for the U.S. dollar. We're consolidating a little bit here since about the middle of April. And so now we're starting to break to the downside a little bit, seeing a little bit of a retracement. We'll have to see if that continues, but nothing to be concerned of. The dollar isn't dying anytime soon. Now let's start taking a look at the fun stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do have a question, start posting it in the chat now because we're going to get the questions here pretty quick. I do see a couple members still coming in. Welcome. Glad you guys made it. Let's take a look at the important dates in the market. And this is going to be short because there aren't any. There's nothing going on as far as economic catalysts, things like that. Everything was last week with the interest rate decision and, the unemployment rate, the jobs creation, which was significantly lower than expected. But people are seeing that as a good thing because it means that the rate hikes are working. Of course, if the rate hikes are working, that means that the economy is slowing down so that they can try and get inflation back under control. So that's kind of really what happened here on Wednesday with Powell's discussion and, of course, the jobs announcement. So let's take a look at the fun stuff. Let's take a look at the earnings calendar. So starting off with Monday, some big names here to keep an eye on, but again, we're not recommending you take any position in any of these. These are just some big companies to keep an eye on. We do have a couple of airlines. We've got Spirit coming up, and then Berkshire Hathaway, of course. Warren Buffett's company. That's going to be a big one here on Monday before the open. But I'm pretty confident that most investors are not going to be taking a position in Berkshire Hathaway prior to earnings. If you know, you know. After the close, Palantir or PLTR, definitely one to keep an eye on. That should be interesting. Really not that much else going on Monday. Things start really happening on Tuesday before the opening with Walt Disney reporting. That's going to be the big one there. Of course, if you're into the new energy drink, Celsius, CELH, in one to keep an eye on, and Datadog, definitely one, that we've traded in the past, so definitely something to watch. Again, not recommending you take any position. After the close, I don't know why Rivian's at the top of the list. Can we just get that crossed off? Really nothing too exciting here after the close. A couple names that you should be familiar with. Twilio is one that, we've traded in the past. Of course, we have BP before the opening if you want to do an oil play. But, nothing too exciting here on Tuesday after the close for the most part. Before the open on Wednesday, though, we got Shopify and we got Shopify. That's really it before the open. Of course, Uber's here, but not something that we trade too frequently in Elite. And then after the close, Airbnb, definitely one to keep an eye on. If you're into meme stocks, AMC is still here. And then the trade desk should be interesting. Of course, Riz has stated his feelings about Beyond Meat in the past. And so if you know, you know, if you've been here for a while. Let's take a look at Thursday. Nothing too exciting going on Thursday before the open. If you like pixelated games, then hey, Roblox is here. And I'm not sure if that's something that I would look into, but hey, some people do like that. And then after the close, nothing. Nothing too interesting. And then Friday before the open, kind of more of the same, really not too much exciting things going on here. So probably the biggest names this week is going to be Walt Disney, and maybe Shopify could make some waves, but Walt Disney's the biggest company here on the list that I would be keeping an eye on, but again, not suggesting that you take a position. So I want to go ahead and pass it over to our members who are here live on the call. If you do have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to take a look at anything. give you my opinion on stuff. Again, can't give you investment advice, but more than happy to discuss what's going on in the stock market or any ticker that you like to see. But while you guys are doing that, let's take a look at Apple because we wanted to talk about this because there were some big announcements with Apple this week. So obviously, earnings were absolutely fantastic. After the close on Thursday, absolutely destroyed it in terms of revenue. EPS, earnings per share, the the I never remember the name of this, but yeah, the outlook was looking very good, and Apple responded in kind on Friday, making a huge gap up here. Looks like we closed up only 6%, but let's take a look at what that gap was. Just approximately here, we opened, yeah, about up almost 8%. So an absolutely massive move for a company as big as Apple. And the big news that Apple announced on Friday is they are going to be having the largest share buyback in history. $110 billion worth of stock they're going to be buying up. And to put that into perspective, if they wanted to just go ahead and take their money and, maybe just acquire another company, they could acquire with that amount of money company like Lockheed Martin, John Deere, Starbucks, could be Apple Bucks instead of Starbucks, but not today, sadly. Mercedes, Porsche, Shopify. Of course, Shopify is reporting. Ferrari's reporting later this week as well. They could buy Boeing, Airbnb, Sony, Dell, or BP, just willy-nilly if they wanted to. But yeah, an absolutely huge move here for Apple, obviously with this earnings, and then the announcement for the buyback definitely kind of helped push this down a little bit. Of course, there's a lot of profit taking when you jump 8% on a blue chip stock or a growth stock here like Apple. So let's see, dividend is coming up on Friday, the 10th of May. Yeah, that's this Friday. So be aware of that. If you want to get in on that dividend, you need, I can't talk. You do need to be in before the X date being Friday. So you need to be purchasing by Thursday if you want to get in on that dividend. If not, if this is a bit too high for you on Apple, I don't blame you for, just not necessarily jumping in willy-nilly on that. You don't want to chase something like this typically, but hey, Apple, a great company. Nothing wrong with holding it long term if you want to. But yeah, really big announcement from Apple on that share buyback. And yeah, they could acquire some big name companies there, but decided to buy back their own stock. So that kind of gives you an idea of how big Apple is and what they're doing. Let's see, what's that market cap sitting at these days? Oh, just a mere $2.83 trillion. So yeah, 100 billion. Just gonna slap a tenth off of there, but still pretty big move by Apple to make that large amount of share buyback. Well, I'm not seeing any questions coming in from our members here who are live, so I want to thank everybody who came out to the call and joined us. I know we had somebody new, so thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Riz should hopefully be back next week if all goes well. But as always, if you need us, we're, of course, if you're in Elite, feel free to hit us up on Discord on our channel. If you're not in Elite, you need to be doing that. Get down in that link in the description. Make sure you get in on that wait list if you can't get in right now, because let me tell you, Elite is where it's happening. Riz is doing fantastic for all of our members. He posted his profile, progress so far this year. And, if you're following along with Riz, I think you're doing pretty good at this point. So as always, have a great rest of your weekend. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. We'll see you in the markets on Monday.